down and listen to records. Smell the cover, read all the verses. Tell me about your favorites on vinyl and vision.
Hey folks, thanks for tuning in to the latest episode of Vinyl and Vision. Here we are with episode 121. Today's very special guest is Adam MacGregor. Adam is a longtime friend. I've known him most recently as he became involved in another iteration of Microwaves. He's been a longtime member of that band, just on and off. But so we talk a little bit about that, and it was great to be able to speak with him. He is very far away right now. He lives in India currently, and that sucks for the friends of his that live in the States. But it's so nice to be able to have the internet now and be able to communicate with these people. But Adam is a very talented and very knowledgeable multi-instrumentalist. So, as I mentioned, he had played in Microwaves. He was the bass player for that band, but he also has his own projects, two of which, one is Brown Angel, and another, these are recent projects at least, Brown Angel and Soft Corner. So, Brown Angel has a new album coming out. It's called Promise Maker, and it's coming out on Sleeping Giant Glossolalia in July. Don't know the exact date, but in July 2024, so it's actually coming up very, very quickly. I've been advanced the album, and I've been able to listen to it in its entirety. It's a 5-track album, so some of the songs are a little long, but it's a great piece. For those of you who enjoy noise rock and even some metal, maybe some death metal, grindcore, stuff like that, there's elements in there. It's not, as Adam says in this conversation, it's accessible. It's a little bit of a departure for Brown Angel, but I find it very, very good. I mean, I think maybe it's because of that. Maybe because there is a slightly more refined nature to it that it just kind of grabs my ears so much easier. But it's a great album. So Adam seems to keep very busy. Between these two projects, there's a lot of things that he has done. There's some videos for some of the songs. There's obviously multiple albums and EPs and so forth. So I will link all of those things. So if you're interested in digging into it, you can find them in the show notes. And otherwise, the main topic of discussion tonight was Van Halen's 1984. Now, if you know anything about Adam and the bands that he's been in, or in some of the music that he's created, maybe that seems like a stretch. I don't know. Now that I've gotten into the research for Van Halen and this album and got to know Adam a little bit better now through this conversation, maybe not so much. Maybe not so much of a stretch. But it was obviously very important to him, and we obviously go very deep into those details. And he even shares a very special moment with me, 2 special moments with me that are Van Halen adjacent. So listen up for those. One is very much at the very end, and the other is somewhere in there. I don't remember. It was a long conversation. But just like to say thank you for showing up. Thank you for listening and tuning in. We very much appreciate it. So all that we ask here is that if you do like the show, please do all the things you do with the internet. Like, share, subscribe, comment, rate it, review it, share it with your friends, your family, all of that stuff. We thank you very much. It helps us out immensely. And if you care to help us out in a financial way, you can always visit our website, psychicstatic.net. Any purchase made through there helps fund the show. And there's also links to my eBay store where I have a bunch of records for sale and have a lot of stuff in there right now. So please do it. Thank you very much, folks. Enjoy. Hey, how are you doing?
How are you, my friend?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm doing okay, man. Super
Adam.
stoked to talk about what is impossible to overstate the importance of this record.
Yeah.
And in general, Van Halen. So
sure. I mean, I guess, but that makes sense. Hold on one second. I think I'm running a little hot over here.
Sure.
Speaking of Van Halen and David Lee Roth.
Feeling a little hot tonight.
Isn't that a quote from this album? Running a little hot tonight?
Feeling a little hot tonight. Running a little hot tonight or feeling a little hot tonight. I think he can barely see the road from the heat coming up.
That's right. That's it. Yeah, we'll get there, man. But hey, how are you? It's good seeing you.
Yeah, you too. I think the last time we crossed paths was well, was it the Ketterwall?
No, I have not been to
I
Caterwall. No
think
Coast, maybe.
no
Uh,
Coast.
No
I'm
Coast
trying to think if
Fest.
I was in Providence prior to.
No, you were. You were here in Providence. You played at dusk with microwaves.
Yes, that was a
So
while back.
it was a
Yeah,
couple
that
summers
was
ago now, I think. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I think the most recent time that I saw you was it would have been No Coast, I think.
Yeah, I think you're
We
showing
were hanging with all the usual suspects
right, right. Yeah, it was
in
a
the
great time.
Providence, the Rogues Gallery of Providence.
Yeah, I don't do much touring, so that was a pretty fun and unique experience for me. And
Yeah.
then obviously to be surrounded by all those bands that were there playing and hanging out, it was pretty great.
Oh, it was unreal. I mean, for me, that was kind of a late career reawakening, and it felt so good just to reconnect with the worldwide scene as far
Yeah,
as the kind of stuff that we do, right?
right.
You instantly feel like, you've known these people for like decades.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? It's like hitting
Sure.
off. I met like a ton of people from just, this guy from Mexico. I met some other folks from other out of the country. But people. Oh, and of course the Tropical Fuck Storm
Uh,
folks
right.
who were lovely, and
Mets?
the folks who came from the UK. They
Oh.
did it split with Psychic Graveyard.
Oh, USA Nails.
Thank you, USA Nails. Yes,
Yes, those guys were
great
awesome.
guys, very very friendly
Yeah, of
guys, very and of course, it's rad to catch up with Mr. Dan St. Jakes and
course.
Mr. Paul Viera and Mr. Eric Paul. Um, I've been fans for a long time, and I'm lucky enough to be able to count them among friends as well
Right,
as
right.
major influences. Yeah. So
Yeah, no, I know. And so two things about what you said. I mean, first of all, the connection that we have with these people, even upon first meeting them, that connection comes through music and our
yeah,
familiarity with music, the kind of
yeah,
music that we like, that the stuff that influences us. Obviously, being at a quote unquote noise rock fest, you're
yeah,
gonna have a bunch of people that kind of know a lot of the same music and
yeah,
kind of like
totally.
find a lot of the same joy in it.
Totally, totally. And chances are, they're going to know what you're talking about, and they enlighten you as to something you haven't been able to check out before.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah, it's like, it's our tribe, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
And the other thing you were
yeah,
talking
yeah.
about was, when we had seen each other last, like at No Coast and so forth, and at dusk, you were playing with microwaves at the time.
Correct,
So,
correct.
and that was a fairly new thing for you at the time, or you kind of like you moonlight with like
Yeah,
microwaves, right?
depends on who you ask.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so that was actually, yeah. I know that you had Dave Kuzi, Dr. Dave, on your show
And John,
some time
I've had the
back, and
trifecta
John,
now. Yeah.
and well, founding bass player Steve Moore,
Oh, that's right. Yep.
who is also like, you know, one of my best friends. Like, I've known all these guys for like 30 plus years,
Right. Yeah.
like we go way back and everything. Before we started playing together, I was fans of, their respective bands, John with the 1985 and then Microwaves. And, before he kind of roped me in, getting into a bunch of his, a bunch of projects with him. But
Mhm.
so that was my third tenure with Microwaves.
Oh,
Now,
okay.
Dr. Dave has all the dates written down. He has it very well documented. But basically, I was first in the band in 2006,
Okay.
and we did one record on Crucial Blast. It's called Contagion Heuristic. And you can still order it from Crucial Blast. They recently revived Crucial Blast. Hello,
Oh,
Adam
cool.
Wright. Uh, he's back in operation. So that I was in the band. It wound up being like over maybe like a year and a half, I think. So it wasn't very
Okay.
long because I was looking at a career change. I decided to go to graduate school, and
Mm.
then at that point, like in early 2008, I just kind of set music on the shelf for a while, and went and got my master's. But
Oh, I see.
and then in 2012, yeah, it was 2012. I had been abroad and then came back. I was back in the country for about a year. They recruited me again to help out with just realizing some songs that they had been kicking around for a while, and they knew those guys are constantly churning out new material and new ideas and working stuff out. And I mean, they do it those guys, I mean, they do it the old-fashioned way
Yeah.
that I remember doing. You know what I mean? Like, you get into a
Yeah.
practice space, cancel your afternoon plans, and
Yeah.
just bash shit out.
For hours.
Yeah, yeah. I
Okay.
mean, playing like the same riff, the same 8-bar riff, you know, 250 times in a row sometimes. At least it felt like it, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But
Sure.
just so, I mean, that is the old school way of, communing. There's no file sending back and forth. I tried doing the file sharing stuff with him, and it just doesn't compute,
Really?
which is
Okay.
fine,
Yeah.
because the preferred method among us Pittsburgh folks, of which there's like probably like 4 or 5 bands at this point, like working within kind of the noise rock
Yeah.
idiom,
Sure.
is to, bash it out in the practice space
Right. So that's for the
for hours,
bones.
right?
That's to
So
like kind of get the basis of what the song is going to be like. And then as far as file sharing, I mean, that can be for fine tuning.
yeah, yeah, yeah. A lot of times Dave would come up with a riff and then he would send it to me. And then I would kind of, oh, well, Dave would put like, he's got like one of those little like, so he puts like this clattery, rhythm along to it. And, I just would kind of work out a bass part, which meant majority of the time, you know, I was trying to be the disruptor. I was
Yeah.
trying to play against what he was playing, right? Or
Right.
play not just counterpoint, but almost like counter purpose
Sure.
to
Yeah.
what he was doing. You know what I mean? Because I just like I liked, kind of fucking up the typical role of the bass, because they were just a trio. And they had a long history of just weird bass stuff, starting with Steve Moore,
Mm-hmm.
playing his what you call this I got it sitting right here. This was the secret. This is a microwave sound in a box, but it's going to cost you. This is the
Oh,
Korg G5.
okay.
So this is all over the early microwaves records, and of course, I finally got one like just as I had like left the band this most recent time. So yeah,
Oh,
whatever. But yeah, I really wanted to kind of maintain the my musical contrarianism, along with the tradition of just like really bizarre bass sounds, like the tone.
right.
Steve paid me a high compliment whenever he was mixing the Discomfiture Atlas record a few years ago. He says, man, it's like, it took me like a week to figure out how to mix your bass parts. He's like, there were like 12 tracks, some of them. I was like, yeah, we got them on overboard, or whatever. He's like, you're like a sculptor of distortion. And I was like, yes.
That is very
So,
nice. Yeah. Hey, so but
so
speaking of which, so you were playing bass for microwaves, but you are a multi-instrumentalist. So what was your primary instrument? Like, what did you first start learning?
well, it's interesting you should ask, because I initially wanted to play bass. Back whenever I was a young thrash metal obsessed, you know, 14-year-old, and I was trying to put a band together, I remember, which was really a laugh, because like I was always like kind of like on the on the margins of the margins, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I was like too afraid to like drink and do drugs and chew tobacco and but yeah, I was just kind of like the guy, the one who was kind of nipping at the heels, like, hey, I can sing too. And I couldn't sing. I was originally going to be the singer of this like, thrash band that I was going to put together in like ninth grade. And that didn't go anywhere.
Hmm.
So I thought, bass looks, you know, I think, the old fallacy that, oh, it's got two fewer strings, so it's got to be easier, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I remember going, yeah, I remember going to, oh, where was it? Professional music in Greensburg, Pennsylvania. And I said, yeah, I'm looking for a bass guitar. I was with my mom and dad. And the lady behind the counter, her name was Mrs. Zucchini. She says, for real, Zucchini. Um, she says, why do you want to play bass? You should start on the guitar. You should start on electric guitar. And I was like, I never really thought about that, but
Hmm.
okay, sure. And I left that day with like a $350 Korean made Martin Stinger
Hmm. Okay.
guitar with a cheap like knockoff Floyd Rose vibrato. And you know, I think I cashed in like bonds or something that my grandmother gave me to afford that shit.
And this is still when you were
And
14, you're saying?
yeah.
Okay.
So this would have been 1989.
Okay.
I was 14, 15. Yeah, I was born in 74. I set about, learning guitar, and I did it like the way that everybody else kind of, you know, does it, especially if you are if a proprietor of a music store suggests that you first buy the guitar, and then they will also suggest all of the accessories that you need for the guitar. I
Oh,
remember
of
she told me a
course.
pitch pipe. I didn't really, I'll save that for later. Because whenever I discovered distortion, it was all, you know.
Oh, it was a
But
whole new world for you.
oh my God, yeah, it's been a lifelong quest. Eddie Van Halen actually talks about his tone chasing, his
Hmm.
constant tone chasing, and he, if you listen to all the Van Halen records in succession, you can see how he, there are subtle alterations between records and even on between tracks on records of his guitar tone, which was always, it struck me as always very trebly, maybe a little fizzy,
Hmm.
right?
Okay.
But with a lot of articulation. And palm mute sound really good, right?
Hmm.
It's not like a heavy metal tone, but it didn't sound like the rest of like the cock rock or like the blues rock or that kind of shit that was going on at the time.
Hmm.
Somehow
Okay.
it just had teeth. And of course
Yeah.
I feel that he sort of lost his way during the 5150, the Hagar years, because he was monkeying around with all these Bradshaw switching units and like
Oh, okay.
freaking running two power amps at once or whatever. I don't know. Dr. Dave and I would talk about that like to no end. But
Yeah.
he then he started working with Peavey.
Hmm.
And that's, of course you've seen the PV 5150,
The
the
amp.
OG PV 5150, which is like the flagship for hardcore. uh I've seen like grind bands using it. I've seen death metal bands using it.
Oh, okay.
It has so much gain that it's unusable past. I have my head here actually. I brought it with me. I have it. Yeah, I have my preamp gain set at 5.
Okay.
And if I go any higher, it just turns into this, it's like fucking chaos, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely unusable. But
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's unfortunate what for gearheads because then you end up amassing this massive collection and then
Uh, I
yeah.
have I have a problem.
Yeah. Well, you've had to try to kind of slim down, I imagine, because just so that everyone knows, you're currently living in India.
I am. Yes, yes. My wife's job transferred her to a little town of Hyderabad in India. And I kind of have a long relationship with India because one of the things that I started doing whenever I got into graduate school, I had been volunteering for an organization called, I'll give them a plug if that's all right.
Sure.
Child Rights New America. They do work for children throughout India,
Hmm.
support projects that aim to restore basic rights to kids, education, healthcare, uh, fighting child marriage, fighting child labor,
Hmm.
all these kinds of things. So
Okay.
we had a volunteer fundraising group in Pittsburgh for a while, which I headed up for a brief period. But I just continued my relationship with them, and just kind of one thing led to another. I decided to make India since I had spent so much time in that geographical region, right?
Hmm.
Whenever I went to graduate school for international development, my focus was on India. And it's
Hmm.
funny because in 2009, I was actually, this is not the first time I've lived in Hyderabad. In 2009, I through a, what do you call it, study abroad program at the University of Pittsburgh, where I
Hmm.
was, finishing up my graduate degree. They had they had an arrangement with the University of Hyderabad, which is like, 2 miles from where I sit.
Yeah.
And I attended like a 3 month summer program, doing some independent studies and whatnot, here, which was absolutely, I mean, you talk about like pivotal moments in your life.
Yeah.
Usually there's like one, right?
Sure.
I think I've got like five. I've been very lucky.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know
Okay.
what I mean? And
Sure. Yeah.
most of them good. Like so, um, met Amy in grad school. We had obviously similar professional interests, and just so happens that we got posted here, and
Hmm.
it's going to be. I think we've been here for almost a year,
Yeah.
and it's much. I find that it is much harder to uh, what I was talking about, like the practice room, getting together with guys in the practice room and like bashing stuff out. It's kind of impractical here and in other
Yeah.
parts.
Right. Do you like can you like or have you met any musicians in that area in that neighborhood that you could even consider like jamming with?
I've met a bunch of guys, a bunch of total maniacs who I love, but they're in Bangalore. They're all the way like they're south. They're like, an hour plane ride south, basically, or
Oh,
like
okay.
I don't know, 20 hours on the train. But they're all into like it's like 4 or 5 dudes, and they have like it's like they have like 20 bands, but it's all just kind of like recombinations of the same guys, right?
That kind of sounds
And
like
they're
what you
just
do.
they're
Yeah.
kind of,
Yeah.
but like their bands they're all gore grind, like they're all
Yeah.
just like fucking nothing but like drill, like blast beats, and just like the extreme vocals, and like fucking samples between the songs and everything. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
uh, they're real into that kind of stuff, and I actually I met a few of them at a metal festival in Bangalore, which I went to a couple months ago. Um, one day I will go to Bangalore and jam with them because I have some material written. I've got all this material for various projects, but I'm like song hoarder, like
Yeah.
unfinished. I won't finish something, and then before I know it, 10 years gone by,
Right. Well, then how do you
and
know
it's
which
still on the fucking
project
hard drive.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how do you know what to apply it to, right? Because you have a few projects. I mean, as of right now, there's Brown Angel and Soft Corner,
Hmm.
right? Is
Yeah.
there another one that I'm missing? I feel like there's another one that I'm thinking.
That's going to be it for now.
Okay.
That's
Right.
going to
And
be
then
it for
even
now.
still,
Yeah.
like because you're in India, like you're semi-transient. I mean, like I don't know how permanent your residence is currently.
Yeah. I mean, we move around a lot for the job. So,
Yeah.
one thing I have been focusing on since we've been here is, I have, taken up a North Indian instrument called the sarod,
Okay.
which it was made. It was sort of put on the map by players like Ustad Ali Akbar Khan, um, Amjad Ali Khan. It's a, I don't want to get it out and show it to you because that'd be just too much of
Okay.
a production. But
I'll have to look it
basically,
up.
yeah, basically uh it's a lute like instrument. It's sort of derived from the Afghan rebab. Uh, Ethnomusicologists theorize this. But it has a metal plate, a curved metal plate as a fingerboard.
Hmm.
It has, let's see, I think mine has like 24 strings, but many of the bulk of those are sympathetic strings,
Right.
right?
Doubled.
So you, and then there are three strings which are called chikari, which is they're just tuned to the same note, and you just use that to accompany yourself more or less.
Okay. Yeah.
And you got to grow your fingernails real long to play it because you actually press down. You press, there's no frets, right?
Yeah.
And I was just like, when I first started playing, I was like, oh yeah, it's like you just press it down with your fingertips. No, 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 because that doesn't give the right tone.
Hmm.
So you got to use your fingernails to press the damn strings down
Weird.
to
Okay.
the fingerboard so
Yeah.
that it almost sounds like a glissando. They call it a mind.
Are they
Um,
round steel strings, or are they like flat, or are they nylon, or what?
yeah, I think the top two are steel, and then the bottom two, I believe, are like phosphor bronze,
Okay.
bronze.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but flat, right?
Uh, okay. Like the bass strings, they're not wound. They're phosphor bronze, but they aren't. But it's like,
Right. Okay. So
yeah,
they're
it's
probably
it's
flat.
smooth
Yeah.
string. Yeah,
Yes, that's it. Okay. Just curious because that'll affect the sound of something you typically,
totally.
especially with the acoustic instruments. I mean,
Yeah,
gives me a
yeah,
better
totally.
feel of like what that might sound like.
Yeah, yeah. But I started studying that about 6 years ago. I have my teacher, my guru sits in Mumbai. Name is Suresh Vyas, and uh, he was up in the rarefied air. Whenever he was learning, he learned from Annapurna Devi, Guru Ma Annapurna Devi, and Annapurna Devi was briefly married to Ravi Shankar, but
Hmm.
she played an instrument called the surbahar, and she was also the daughter of Baba Aluddin Khan, who is basically the founder of the what's called the Gharana, or the school of kind of the school of thought, the approach,
Okay.
uh, which my teacher is an adherent to, as was Annapurna Devi. And so I really lucked out in it. It's kind of funny because like the classical music scene uh, is very. It kind of reminds me in some ways of the indie rock scene or the noise rock scene,
Yeah. How
or
so?
like the hardcore scene back in the 90s, right? It
Yeah.
was where like the circles get very small. You know what I mean? You think
Yeah.
that it's like, oh, these untouchable people, like, who were like, they're so famous and whatever, and then it's like my teacher was telling me about, he's like, yeah, I toured with Ravi Shankar, playing Tampura. He would do some dates with Ustad Ali Akbar Khan, and I would go along and accompany them and everything. And
Hmm.
um, there are these. I remember I bought a record one time. I think I found it. I might have found it in like San Diego or something. It was some Sarod player, and I said I said to Suresh, I was like Suresh, I got this record here by uh, this this uh, this Sarodia, this chap. He says he's from Bombay. He says like, oh yeah, yeah, I know him. He lives like about a mile from or a kilometer from my place. Very near like Bandar Talal. And like
Uh-huh.
I was like,
Yeah.
holy shit. You know, like I
Yeah.
said, it's like the circles get very very small.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, especially when
Uh,
you're living there in that area. I mean, I can imagine that I don't know. I mean, are there a lot of those types of players? I mean, I'm not really familiar with that music, that
Fewer
music
than you
scene.
think. I mean, it's hard for me to kind of suss it out because I would not like here. Yeah, I've been at pains to find any classical North India, Hindustani classical concerts to check out. Now that being said, I just totally missed one on Friday with it looked amazing.
Oh yeah.
Um, a lot of the concerts they're very informal. They're usually hosted at a private home. It's called a baitak, which
Uh-huh.
I mean, I think it translates to just sort of like a sitting, right? And it's
Uh-huh.
very informal. People kind of have friends over, and some renowned musician will play, and you know hang out and I guess have drinks afterwards.
Yeah. It's
But
very
it's almost like you got
super.
to know somebody, know somebody, know somebody, know somebody, right?
Right,
So
right.
I'm
Yeah,
still
because
trying to plug in. Hopefully, it will.
it's a short VIP list to get in there, I suppose. Right.
Yeah, I mean, it, you know, it. I think it's just connecting with the right people who are serious enough about their appreciation of this music
Right.
to get get to know me as also an aficionado.
So let me ask you about that because we're talking obviously about musical
Sure,
influences and so forth. I mean, have you always been interested in this like Indian music?
I have.
Like since you were
Um,
young?
well, two things happened. One, there was a concert one time. It would have been 1994. There was a concert at my university's branch campus. The branch campus I went to was the University of Pittsburgh at Greensburg, right? I went there and I got my undergrad degree in English writing journalism, but mostly just drank and fucked off. But I remember this one night I was upstairs and I was in the newspaper, the student newspaper office. I was laying out the newspaper or something. I was a newspaper staff, and I was like, "Oh, wait! I remember there was some sort of a Indian classical, performance or something." I'm sorry, my cat has just come in and she's wanting to get in on the act,
All
so
right, that's
you might
cool.
hear her and see her.
That's all
Um,
right. I like cats. It's all
so,
right.
uh, oh yeah, yeah. Who doesn't like cats? Okay, you can come up. All right. Now my wife's gonna kill me if I don't show her on camera because little Georgie
Georgie,
is supposed to become an internet sensation,
she's got a good look.
but I've been very delinquent. What's that?
She got a good look. She can definitely go
She
viral.
does. Yeah, she's a
She's just got to
cutie.
do some crazy, funny cat shit.
I
And
know. Yeah. She's much too refined for
yeah,
those kinds of crazy cat tricks.
yeah.
To get back on track, I went and I caught this concert and I was just entranced. It was a sitar player, it was a sarod player,
Hmm.
and way back then was whenever I was instantly drawn to the sarod because it had such a mournful sound.
Yeah.
Um, Very rich, very mellow. It wasn't buzzy like the sitar, but I really I really like the buzz, I really like
Sure.
that sort of drone. But the sarod is more, um, like all what I was later to learn, like all Hindustani instruments, and I would presume Carnatic, the South Indian counterparts, the idea for any instrument is to emulate the human voice,
Hmm.
which is why you've got, the sitar with the movable frets, and that by applying pressure to the string, you can raise the pitch, right?
Oh, yeah. Sure.
And you get those means that way. And
Hmm.
of course, the sarod, so you can sort of get those glides between notes and that kind of thing. But there
Okay.
are no chords in Indian music. There's no chords. There's no harmony, right?
Hmm. Okay. Weird.
It's melody, and it's since I started studying this stuff, it's been a paradigm shift in my understanding of music,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
have been able to apply some of it, technique,
Oh,
you
cool.
know, Um, even just the way I pick, like there was this one thing I was doing in microwaves where I was applying the style of picking that you do with the sarod,
Yeah.
and I would just fucking cruise on these strings, man. It was like I was, I felt like fucking like Dan Lilker or some grindcore bass player or something like that. I was like, holy shit, I can actually, you know, can't teach an old dog new tricks, right?
Yeah,
So
right. So you've been
yeah,
interested in Indian music since you were about 20 in college.
yeah, somewhere about around there. And then what really hammered it home was in 2000, no, I'm sorry, 1999 or thereabouts, went to see Mr. Bungle.
Huh. Okay.
And it was, I think they were touring with like the Dillinger Escape Plan, I think, and Kid 606. So we went to this one club, Pittsburgh, check out the show. And at the end, I think they were playing the song Dead Goon, which sort of kind of metastasizes into this kind of free form, very sort of ambient, psycho ambient kind of breakdown at the end. And they start playing this song. It was based around sort of just like one chord. Dun, 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 dun. And then Patton comes out and sings, singing in freaking Bengali, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And I didn't know what it was. I I was like, I'm getting goosebumps right now just thinking about it. I got goosebumps, and then Patton, he sang the next verse, not like the recorded version, but he's doing the falsetto, the really, really high kind of
Sure.
head voice that singers like Asha Bhosle and Lata Mangeshkar are known for. But he sang the second verse like that. And after that, I was like, I need to hear more of this. I don't know what that was, but I need to hear more of it. So began to search, online, seeing what their set lists, what they were playing and whatnot. And I found that it was an old film song by Hemant Mukherjee. And it was from a Bengali film, maybe from like the 1960s.
Hmm.
And that one incident, like I said, pivot points in my life, that opened up a whole new world to me because I just started blind buying shit. I mean, my brother worked with this fellow who was from Punjab, and he gave me a couple of tapes, and it was more like pop Bollywood stuff, um, things that music of that nature was. I kind of came to believe that was like this was like the original like world music, you
Hmm.
know.
Yeah.
It did not come from the West. It came from the East, right?
Yeah.
It was these Indian music directors who were just yoking together all of these disparate musical influences and traditions in ways that, and in ways that Mr. Bungle did for
Right.
certain, and
Uh-huh.
in ways that you know, I did at one point much more explicitly is like whenever I discovered like John Zorn and, you know, uh, bands that were known for like just changing up the style, right? And
Hmm.
I experimented with that kind of thing clumsily in bands for a while, but that kind of stuff ran its course. Can't be can't
Right.
be can't there's no way to rip off the masters
Sure. Sure. Well,
convincingly.
so I mean, we've been talking a lot about your kind of current situation musically, but I haven't
Mhm.
gone anywhere near your history, like your past. So maybe we should do a little bit of that before we get into this album.
Yeah.
So you were born 1974, where?
1974. Yes, I just turned 50 years young, but I got to do it in India, so that was cool. That was very nice.
Congratulations. Happy birthday.
I don't, thank you. Um, I don't act my age,
That's
which
all
I
right.
think is the
Good.
secret,
Don't.
which I think is the secret, to
Eternal
having,
youth.
energy. Like, oh, my friend Rebecca. Oh, what's that?
Eternal youth. Yeah, right?
Yep. Or something like it.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Rebecca Burchett, my good friend Rebecca, who plays in Multicult. Um, she said something really stuck with me. Just a little, maybe a couple, maybe like a year ago. She said she texted me like in the context of some other story. She's like, "Music keeps you young,"
Hmm.
and I was like, "God damn, it's that simple," you know,
That simple.
like
Yeah.
constructive, creative stuff, shit you can do in your old age. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that
so
keeps
my
things interesting.
story, I know you, yeah. So I know you like records.
Yeah.
I do too. I wasn't brought up in a musical household. All right.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother would tell me that my father was a like a concert pianist or whatever, and but I never knew him to even have played an instrument in my presence. But he later told me, he's just like, oh, you know, I never read the music. I would just memorize it, and then I
Uh-huh.
would play from memory, right? And then he eventually just kind of lost interest in it, and that's like quit altogether. So,
Huh.
but it's like, you know, there, the obsession was not in my lineage, right?
Mm-hmm.
My mom did creative stuff. She was in community theater. Um, she was a she was a great actress. Um, and she's got a wonderful singing voice. Always had. Even she'd sing at the Catholic mass and whatnot. She was like a cantor, whatever that is. But and I've been telling her, you know, they're both in their 80s now, and I've been telling my mom like, you should get back into acting. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
scratch
Sure.
that creative itch. Um, so I as a very young kid, I remember my first record that I became obsessed with was a little 45. It might have been one of those like big place, I don't know, the kids label or something like that. Maybe it came with a book, but it was the Ballad of John Henry.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You know that song?
It sounds vaguely familiar. I feel like I've
Like,
seen it.
when John Henry was a little baby. And there's like a clink,
Yep.
like there's like the
The
it's
sound
supposed to be
effect.
like the rail driving man, you know,
Right, right.
the spikes being driven. So yeah, that was I remember on my little turntable, like just listening to that like 30 times in a row.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something about that. I just loved that song. Which is very funny because decades later, I would play a song called The Iconography of John Henry with the band Creationist Crucifixion, which was a bitch to play. It was really difficult, much
Uh-huh.
harder than much harder than the kids song, right? Um, other records, other early influences. I mean, you know, there was music in the house. My dad was really partial to show tunes, you know,
Mm-hmm.
which I have a problem with actually. It's like I know, you know, we would listen to it in the car, all in a cassette, you know, cassette
Sure.
deck in the car, or whatever, you know. But like South Pacific and the West Side Story, West
Oh,
Side
okay.
Story.
Right, right.
So he was into that kind of stuff, and like Anne Murray. But he had this one record that he would always play, which became my favorite, and it's still very important to me to this day. It was Jimmy Rogers, the singing brakeman, not the Jimmy Rogers country artist from the 70s. This
Oh,
was a guy
okay.
that did stuff like Neil Skinner Blues and it recorded back in the late 20s,
Oh,
you know,
okay. Weird.
early 1930s. And he sang about, you know, working on the railroads, and it was kind of it was an interesting facet or angle, you know, in the country music tradition, where it wasn't about cowboys and stuff. It was about, you know,
Yeah.
working on the railroad
Right.
and riding the rails. Um, he was into Dave Brubeck quartet, I remember. Whenever he got a CD player, we were like the first people on the block to get a CD player. Um, he got Dave Brubeck's Take Five, and he would listen to that incessantly. A lot of classical music, which I loathe. I'm sorry. I like 20th century, like wacky shit, you know, like
Yeah, that's all right.
Xenakis and Ligeti and, you know, all those chaps. But I'm not real into like Beethoven and shit. but my
Hmm.
dad would play it and play it loudly too, um, which I guess was cool. And what else? He had one record that fascinated me, and I still own it actually, by the Japanese synthesist Isao Tomita.
Hmm. Okay.
And it was an album called Snowflakes Are Dancing.
Yeah.
And it just blew my mind. So that was the first time I really heard like electronic music of that nature, right?
Hmm. Okay.
Um, my mom is super into Neil Diamond. So I know of like every Neil Diamond song in existence. And we have actually covered Neil Diamond songs before in a much earlier band, not in any of the stuff we're going to talk about today.
Uh-huh.
And what else did she like? Your basic kind of 80s mom kind of
Sure.
stuff. Like who's that? Barry Manilow.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
That's
essentially, anytime we got in the car, it was that stuff.
okay.
And
So
that
then
had its good. Go
so
ahead.
how did you get into like rock music? I mean, like, I understand that that's a weird kind of background for having your parents kind of
Yeah,
expose you to that stuff, but I mean,
yeah.
obviously something turned for you where you went towards rock music.
That probably I had some inkling of that direction. Uh, Somehow or another, I came into possession of the Beatles. I'm not a Beatles head either. People
Hmm.
say, "What do you like, Beatles or Stones?" I'm like Velvet Underground, like an
Yeah.
asshole, like a hipster, whatever. Um, but Beatles Magical Mystery Tour, and I remember hearing that very early. I remember playing it on my dad's stereo system down in the living room and just being kind of weirded out to the like, especially song like Blue Jay Way, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
the production techniques and everything, and just the sounds were unlike really anything that I had heard before. I mean, you know, I don't even know if I was hearing any like popular music at that time or rock music at that time. And I remember like being like really weirded out by the booklet that came with it, where there's
Oh
like
yeah.
scenes from the movie, right?
Right,
And there's
right.
like these like cartoon sketches of like John Paul and Ringo and I was like, what the, as a kid, I was totally mystified by this. I didn't know there was a movie going with it.
Right, right. How old were you
Just
for that?
had maybe nine,
Okay.
maybe nine, eight
All
or
right.
nine,
So
something like
early
that.
80s.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, like 82, 83,
Yeah. Well, so then I
almost
mean, I
84.
know we're going to make a big jump here, but so
Sure.
Van Halen's 1984, like how do you find that record?
How did I find that record? I believe that again, that came as a gift, an unexpected gift. And it was it must have been for Easter. I think it was for Easter because I think that same year in, we're still doing little Easter baskets and stuff. But I I have a vague memory of getting that on cassette and
Hmm.
Devo's "Oh No, It's Devo."
Really?
Yes,
And this is
and
what
I
year?
remember
This is
this would have
84?
been yeah, this would have been 1984.
So this is
So
when the
I'm
record came
10.
out.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
maybe 84, maximum like 85 or something. But it's like, first of all, the Devo like freaked me out.
I
I
bet.
didn't
Sure.
like it. This is too weird, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Like they
For
go, 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 speed racer, over this. I was too young to get it,
yeah,
basically.
yeah. Especially because it
Um,
doesn't seem like you had a lot of exposure to kind of rock music in general, let alone, punk or new wave or anything else
yeah,
like that, right?
yeah, yeah. I
So
mean,
that
there was
must,
a
yeah, that must be pretty strange.
yeah. I even at school. I mean, I don't remember. Okay, Cyndi Lauper. I remember people talking about how great Cyndi Lauper was, right? But we didn't have MTV. Also,
Oh,
we
okay.
didn't get cable. You know, so yeah, we didn't get cable until like everybody else had cable for like years. You know, people would
Right.
talk about the like home box office and shit. I don't even know what the fuck that was. Um,
So you had a CD
so
player, but you didn't have cable.
well, the CD player came a bit later.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was kind of the sign of the times there. And this was also around the time that Satanic Panic was
Oh, okay.
happening.
Right.
And I fell for that shit hook, line, and sinker, but we'll talk about that if we get to it.
You okay.
So so my first impressions of Van Halen in 1984, very, very hard to remember. I remember um, listening to it and not really being able to discern with my young mind what was what.
Hmm.
Like I think probably first I thought it was just like a singer. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like I
Uh-huh.
thought that like Van Halen is some guy who is a vocalist, you know. I
Yeah.
had no idea, you know, David Lee Roth and the history of, you know, I didn't even know enough to tease out what was guitar and what was synth, right? Um, I remember being in fifth grade, and this was about the time when everybody was getting into like Motley Crue and Twisted Sister and all of that stuff. I wasn't allowed to listen to any of that stuff.
Hmm.
And I was going to Sunday school at the time. I was raised Catholic, and we had this kind of wackadoodle teacher and music teacher she was all in on the fucking Satanic Panic stuff.
Yeah.
And me being prone to contemplation and guilt and nervousness, neurotic even at the young age. Like I fell for that shit too.
Yeah.
And
Well, so then
like
how did you get 1984? You said it was a gift for Easter, but I mean, who gave it to you and why would they give
I
you
think it
Van
must have been my
Halen?
mom. Yeah, it must have been my mom. I think she just kind of bought whatever. Maybe she just saw it on sale. She probably saw it on sale.
It was a big, I mean, it was a big seller. I mean,
Yeah,
1984 when it came out, I
absolutely.
mean, went
Absolutely.
multi-platinum. So, I mean, it must have
Absolutely.
been at the forefront of record stores,
Yeah.
like counters or whatever, just
Oh, it had
especially it
to have
was
been.
on
Yeah.
cassette.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
And
so she must
got
have
it.
saw something in it, like, because she saw something in you that said, hey, he might like music, you know, so why
Well,
not
yeah.
grab something like this and bring it home to him and see what he
I would
thinks.
have to ask her. No way she'll remember, but maybe it was because of the cover,
Oh, with
the
the
kid,
baby, the
like the
angel.
angel, like smoking a cigarette. You know,
That's
maybe it
suggestive
was.
too. That's
Yeah, maybe
weird.
she thought it was like. Maybe she thought it was like. I don't know, like a religious or something. Who knows? But that doesn't
Yeah.
explain the fucking Devo. You know,
Yeah, that's true.
like
So
yeah. So
strange.
I don't know. I don't know. That's a real head scratcher.
Yeah. So
At
so
any
so
rate,
little
I'm
does
glad
your
it came
mother
into my
know.
life.
Yeah, yeah. A little does your mother know that she just like kind of like ruined your whole life with these two tapes.
Well,
Change the direction at
it
least, you know?
definitely, yeah. I would venture to say I'd be much more boring.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe. I don't know. Who
I
knows?
would
Or
have
like
not have
when,
had an enjoyable.
right. Or when would you get into this stuff? Like when would you find rock music if it wasn't for that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, probably, I guess probably I would have got into this shit via like MTV or whatever. Whenever we finally did get cable,
Yeah.
found
Okay.
that away. But I'm kind of glad it happened the way it happened because again, this was long before the bombardment with all media. I'm still trying to get used to the fact that you can hear any piece of recorded music in history at the click of a button.
Right.
I know
Yeah.
I sound like old man screaming at cloud or whatever, but I don't remember back whenever we used to have to do interlibrary loan to hear, uh, you know, uh, Henry Cowell records or fucking Henry Threadgill or Joan Zorn or Glenn Branca. You had to do interlibrary loan to get the LPs, and then you copied them to tape and whatever. But now
Wow.
it's just
Yeah.
like everything's instantly accessible, and for better or worse, that's just the world we live in. And I'm not banging it out because like I to this day I'm discovering music that I missed,
Oh yeah.
that I couldn't possibly have heard. I know Tim Dahl,
Hmm.
bass player from he's playing with Lydia Lunch and is in the band Child Abuse. He said he always quips, if all music stopped tomorrow, like we'd be fine. You could go back over the entire
Oh
everything that
yeah.
we're just flush,
Right.
with music to satisfy even the most voracious,
Yeah.
audio file or
Yeah.
whatever.
That's a good point. Yeah, we should just stop now. Just stop making shit.
I mean, you know,
So let me ask
so
you, like about this record. So one of the
sure.
things I found in the research for Van Halen, because let me just state, first of all, 1984 was the first and only Van Halen record I ever personally purchased for myself. And it wasn't in 84. It was, I don't know. I bought it on CD. I think it was part of the BMG thing. It was like, get a 12 CDs for a penny or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
It
You
was so
scam
it was
that
much
shit.
later, Van Halen was definitely, I think they were already with Sammy Hagar by that point, but I was just like,
Hmm.
I need some Van Halen in my life. I'll get this one.
Hmm.
Um, wasn't huge for me. I don't know. I thought it was only okay at the time.
Hmm.
But so I was researching Van Halen to get ready to talk to you tonight, and
Hmm.
the Brown sound. What do you know about the Brown
Ah,
sound?
yeah. So I had mentioned briefly before, like, Eddie's tone chasing and whenever you get right down, especially whenever you listen to like the isolated guitar tracks of the early Van Halen stuff,
Hmm.
it's a strange sound. Like I said, it's this grainy kind of top end, which I think is the secret.
Okay.
Um, and the percussive, like the palm mutes sound really good. Um, there's clarity. He plays a lot of complex chords, right?
Hmm.
Or like chords with thirds,
Okay.
like on the B string or whatever, right? Um, Arpeggios, look at like Ain't Talking About Love, right? Um, you know, fucking Unchained, with the those little barred like third, chords that have a third on the top.
Hmm.
Um, he was after something with teeth. He wanted something that would uh, permit those intricacies. The Brown sound, this as the story went. I only know this from reading Noel Monk's uh, yeah, book about the early days of Van Halen. Eddie would be very nervous on, before like an interview or on the radio or something, and to the point where he just like would clam up and not say anything. And like Roth was just like, man, say anything, just fucking make something up. Who cares, right? So that whole idea of like the Brown sound, at various times, Eddie himself has said that it wasn't really in reference to his guitar tone. He's like, I think it was more an attempt to sum up what Alex was doing,
Yeah.
right? The
Okay.
sound of the drums. And then
Or
he's like, yeah, because
the
it's like,
two of them combined, I think, right?
I think so too. Yeah, I think
Okay.
so too.
Yeah.
There was some debate as to whether or not Eddie had what's that called, synthenesia, where you see music. You
Oh,
know what I
really?
mean?
Oh,
You
I'm not
perceive
familiar. Yeah.
music as, yeah. It's not a disorder, but it's a condition where you hear music differently than uh,
Yeah,
most people do.
neurotypical.
Right?
Yeah.
Maybe you hear it is you're like, oh, that sounds purple, or
Right,
it
right.
sounds like
Okay.
a dinosaur or something.
Oh, so maybe he was singing Brown with the
It's
what they would make.
possible. Yeah, it's possible. Because then he said something like, yeah, it's like whenever it's like him beating on a log. And I was like, I don't know, man. I think he was just out to lunch, with that thing. But
All right.
you know, the interplay though between Eddie and Alex is undeniable. The
Sure.
bond that they had, and it's very sad because Alex obviously heartbroken. I mean, just last week he sold all of his stuff. He like did
Oh
a
man.
Christie's
Really?
auction or whatever. Everything,
Jesus.
all of his drum kits, all of his music stuff, all of the Van Halen memorabilia, that he
Huh.
had racked up over the years. And, you know, like Michael Anthony was interviewed about that. And he's just like, I just don't think he wants to play music anymore without Ed,
Right.
which
Yeah.
like that almost like that really brought me to tears, you
Yeah, it's
know,
sad. I mean, they were brothers. I
that
mean, so that's always a
yeah,
difficult thing.
that loss goes, I mean, yes, it's the loss of a brother, not only a brother, but a musical partner with whom you share a vocabulary, a
Right.
shared understanding of, almost a predictive relationship,
Right.
right? Two
Yeah.
guys sharing one brain. And a lot of that was forged, I feel, it was a hard scrabble, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, first generation immigrant family, you
Hmm.
know.
Right.
Um, they he said that whenever they landed up in the United States, they couldn't speak English.
Hmm.
They're still speaking Dutch, right?
Right.
So it's like their only friends were each other
Oh
until
yeah.
they learn English. Um, so yeah, it's almost like a stronger than blood bond.
Right.
Even like you listen to some of the Van Hagar stuff, it's like you could hear them playing off each other, right?
Hmm. Right. So the Brown
Um,
sound I was asking you about, because I wanted to ask you, like,
correct.
what could you call your sound?
Chewing on aluminum foil,
Okay.
maybe
Fair.
with a volcanic eruption happening in the background. Typically in Brown Angel, the idea was, I was heavily into thrash metal. I was heavily into like early death metal, super, super, super into grindcore, like
Hmm.
early grindcore back in the day. The, a, another musical milestone was the first time I heard on the college radio station WVCS, California University, on their metal show. Like long after midnight, they played Anal Cunt's 88 song 7-inch. One of the ones. Now, this was before, okay, don't cancel me. This was long before they became like super shady. Okay. This is
A
like 19 freaking
anal
89.
cunts before they became shady?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. 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 When they were just a noisecore band. They were
Yeah.
just a noisecore band. And it was like, you know, no songs, no titles, no nothing, right?
Yeah. Right.
And when I heard that, that was another one of those like mind blown moments. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Never heard anything like this before. I'd never heard the Boredoms. I'd never heard like, Zorn and No Wave and, this kind of shit. But I was like, and that was about the same time I got my guitar. And I was just like, wow, like anybody could do this,
Hmm.
It's like I didn't realize the bar was that low, man. You just have to have a good idea. It's the idea that counts,
Right.
right? Okay, so yes, the kind of shit that I was into, the kind of shit it was coming from, the kind of shit that was really moving me was like,
Hmm.
chuggy thrash metal, Scott Ian with the right hand that basically launched my guitar playing, my interest in guitar playing, that choked palm mute, right? But
Yeah.
I like to do it. I like eventually. So in my early bands, I I remember having like a sort of a typical metal tone whenever I was playing with the band Creation is Crucifixion. We had graduated to like metal zones, right? The boss metal zone. And
Yeah.
everybody says that's a piece of shit, but now apparently it's having a little bit of a revival moment, the boss metal zone. But I always liked it, and I actually used that in the early days of Brown Angel because um I wanted for for Brown Angel, which is subsequent to Creation and the band Conelrad that I was in for a few years beforehand, which is like a grind duo basically. I wanted something that was more flabby and amorphous and uncontrollable, right?
Hmm. Okay.
So that's whenever I was like, I want to keep those chugs, right? I want those chugs to be there, but that's where the resemblance to metal stops, right?
Hmm.
Because interspersed with those chugs is like every time I quit playing, there's so much gain on that you're just getting microphonic feedback, just shrieking, right?
Right.
And I always favored like a really kind of mid-rangey, you know, like it was back. I think the first time I saw Arab on Radar, he had that tweeter array,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
right? that
Wait,
just put
wait,
out this, you know,
right. So then, wait, Steve Matos or was it Jeff Schneider? I didn't catch that.
I think it was both of them actually. I mean, you can't,
Yeah.
Airborne Radar guitarists sort of, like they had their own sound, they had their own unique vocabulary, and much in the way that can be said about Eddie Van Halen. You know what I mean? Is
Oh yeah.
definitely one of the most original. Shatters the mold and
Pioneers, man.
innovates.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
So I what I wanted was this what can I say? Noise metal. That's
Right.
what I wanted. I
Yeah.
wanted I wanted this like uncontrollable kind of whirlwind
Right.
of sound whenever there would be those little stops or whatever. There would be feedback that I would endeavor to control sometimes,
Right.
but
Hence.
mainly, and I always favored the high end. I always favored the high end.
Oh, okay. So
So,
hence the chewing on
yeah, so
aluminum
we,
foil.
yeah, which is the sensation I get whenever I hear Steve Manos on guitar. You
Yeah,
know,
that's
he's a
pretty
lovely
good.
guy, man. But yeah,
Love him.
his guitar playing was just fucking something else, and his tone just incredible.
Still is. I mean, he's
Still,
yeah.
totally, yeah,
His
yeah.
new
Um,
project's great, man.
I need to check them. Is that with Pat?
Yeah,
Is Pat in that as well?
Pat's
I
playing
haven't
again.
seen
Yeah.
Pat in so long, man. Yeah, we played. I think Brown Angel played with. I think we played at like AS 220.
Yeah,
Was
with
it
the Athletic Automaton.
with Athletic Automaton? And then they came to Pittsburgh and we played with them in White Mice, which was a freaking mind blow of an
Oh
event.
yeah. Yeah, that's a great
Um,
bill.
I've been to the state of Rhode Island more than I have been to any other state in the union,
Yeah. Well, that's cool,
and it's
man.
always for gigs.
Yeah,
But
of
like,
course.
I would I telling my wife, I was like, we gotta fucking go. We gotta just go like hang out,
Yeah.
meet
Yeah.
all the meet all the folks, you know, the warm and friendly, like I said, it's our tribe, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I
And
mean, you know so many of the dudes here, so many of the people that are part of the music scene here. So I mean, I can imagine it would be so welcoming for you to just kind of come and hang.
totally, yeah. I would be very very graciously accepting
Yeah.
of that. I mean,
All right.
and
Well, come on down, man.
I will totally.
All right,
And
listen. We got
which
to start
struck
talking about this album.
awesome.
So
Yeah, totally.
1984,
Yes.
released in 1984, January 9th, actually, to be exact. I'm gonna skip the first song because it's just an instrumental.
The
Um,
opening of the field, that's all I have to say about it.
Absolutely.
It was
And
unlike anything I heard, and rumored to be only a small part of a longer 45-minute piece.
right, I heard that.
Wow.
Yeah.
How would you
Great.
like to be a fly on the wall at 5150 Studios whenever they bake that tape?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But so then it leads into the second track, which is the most famous track off of the album, biggest seller, the biggest single, Jump.
I gotta get my notes out here. So
Uh-oh. All right.
I had to jot some things down.
Okay.
So I think that it is the perfect rock song, Jump.
Really?
And
Okay.
we get Ed showing off his synth chops,
Mm-hmm.
heretofore unheard. Uh, I mean, at least this, epic and
Yeah, yeah, in this way, sure.
like the synth solo, the whole like the solo section. I feel is just like it's like a composition in and of itself. You
Right.
know, Like,
Yeah.
first the guitar solo, and then the synth solo. It's like a ray of sunshine. You know,
Yeah.
beaming through the clouds is what I feel.
This
And
this song is a bit poppy, you know? I mean, like listening to it now as an older person after so
mhm.
many years, and like I don't know, it definitely is positive feeling in that regard, like very sunshiny.
There's some meat to it though.
There
You
is.
know,
Yeah.
like I always thought that 1984 was a dark record for Van Halen. In fact, a lot of
Really?
people say like Fair Warning was the darkest album they did. And I was like, no, 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 no. I think 1984, at least serious, There wasn't no Ice Cream Man. There wasn't any Take Your Whiskey Home. There wasn't any kind of jokey
Yeah.
stuff on
Okay.
the record.
I'm gonna have to read
Yeah,
something a little lengthy for you, so just bear with me for a second. So Jump
that's okay.
had been presented to the band 2 years prior to the actual recording. Its inspiration came from David Lee Roth coming across the Evening News reporting a potential jumper. He saw this news report. According to Ted Templeman's autobiography, as told by Greg Renoff, he said that he told Dave he didn't like the idea of singing about encouraging someone to jump out of a window. Dave's retort was, quote, "That's not what I mean, Teddy. I mean, you got to find your nerve, take a chance. Ask that fine girl across the room to dance. Even though she might say no, life is all about rolling the dice and going for it. Take a leap of faith and jump. Get it?" So Templeman goes on to add, Jump, quote, was about taking bold action in the face of humiliating failure. With this being said,
There you go.
what do you think is the biggest chance you're taking with the new Brown Angel album, Promise Maker?
Oh yeah, the new Brown Angel record will be. I should mention that it's coming out on the famous Sleeping Giant Glossolalia label. We're looking at a late summer release.
Yep.
Um, Biggest risk. This is more of a rock and roll record in the
Yeah.
sense that uh, the there structurally it is kind of more typical formula, like rock formula.
Okay.
Less repetitive. Like repetition was always our thing, and that was an idea that we stole from uh, Providence folks, landed, and
Uh-huh.
that we really liked that just Sturm und Drang kind of pounding. But the new record. I mean, I was told by one somebody that like, oh, it's definitely got like Faith No More vibes.
A little bit.
Here we go.
I saw
Yeah,
that. I
he's
love
like,
that
yeah,
poster, dude.
yeah, 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 yeah. Um, Incidentally, the real thing was on the tip of my tongue for this, but I think
Oh,
Jump, or rather, Van Halen is more in my DNA at this
okay.
point.
That's cool.
Warrants discussion. Yeah, but so we definitely have expanded aspects of the band and maybe exercised some restraint in others.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm
Well,
gonna
it's
have
a
to give
great
it.
record. I have to tell you,
Thank
man.
you.
I listened to the whole thing and it's awesome. Not only does it
Oh
sound
my God.
great,
Thank you.
but
Yeah.
it's just a solid record as far as like,
Thank you.
compositions and so forth.
Thank you.
I really do like it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
No problem. And I listened to your
I'm letting that
entire
in, man. Yes. Thank you.
I listened to your entire discography. I mean, you sent me all of the music from Brown Angel and Soft Corner, so I've been kind of on Adam McGregor overload.
You're gonna have to get a palate cleanser.
Well, I mean, yeah,
Listen to some.
I've had time
Yeah.
to kind of sit with other things,
Right on.
but yeah, it's been a lot. But
Listen to
yeah,
some
prom
Shags or something.
I very well might.
You should.
Um, I will.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's keep on moving. So Panama
Sure.
is the next song.
Yes.
So despite its name, the song is clearly not about the Central American country. It has
Correct.
been widely documented that Diamond Dave wrote this about a car named Panama Express, though still littered with sexual innuendo.
Yeah. Well, it's it's kind of his stock and trade. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Oh,
Although
absolutely.
I maintain this, and Dr. Dave from Microwaves agrees with me. We always said that Roth was the smartest guy in the room.
I will agree with that.
Pursuant,
Yeah,
yeah, pursuant to the fact that he had a vision for the band.
absolutely.
He wanted a full presentation, right?
Yeah.
And he very, very well-read individual and
Yes.
kind of a polymath at this point. I mean,
Yep.
people can joke about, yeah, I know he did cruddy music, but do it back in the 90s, but fucking Eat 'Em and Smile was like a high watermark for hard rock writ
Yeah.
large,
Okay. Right.
um, and his worldliness really shows in some interesting ways. I mean, he was. I think he might have had to come back from some like South American like jungle
Yep.
voyage or something. Like he had a bunch of guys that they would do stuff like, they climb like K2 or like, travel the Amazon or,
Yeah.
do all this like extreme sports kind of stuff. I mean, definitely the guy was an adrenaline junkie.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I mean,
For sure.
shit, he became an EMT back in the early 2000s. He was a freaking EMT in New York City.
That's right.
And that, the only time I ever watched the Joe Rogan thing, I hate to give him any free press, but the only time I watched it was whenever David Lee Roth was on. And Roth, I about fell out of my seat because Roth fucking cited Bill Burroughs and Brian Geison's cut up technique.
Uh-huh.
I was
Yeah.
like, what the fuck? You're not going to
Yeah.
hear Steve Piercy talk about, stuff that's that fringe, right?
Right. Yeah.
So he really, he knows what he's talking about, and he brought a lot of those nuances to the band.
Yeah, yeah, no, I
Uh,
hear you. So I was
so
gonna say now I know from my previous discussions with your former Microwaves colleagues, Dave Kuzi specifically, humor is something that Dave had said that he hopes doesn't go unnoticed with the band like Microwaves. So how much humor is there in the Brown Angel project?
nothing, zero.
No humor, totally
No,
dry.
no, 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 no. I mean, it's like a different. I never did this for like money or recognition or anything. I would be insane to think that I would play this kind of music for any other reason than self-expression and getting something out. You
Right.
know, this is primarily therapy, right? Um, the the absurd, goofy, ridiculous, fall on your face, pratfall, stand-up comedian uh, part of me was microwaves. Listen to
Uh-huh.
the last record, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
horrible falsetto and just, trying to sound like Udo Dirkschneider and stuff. And just the absurdity. It started as it sounds cliched, but it was a release. It was a cathartic kind of, lots of like, hey man, like any musician, creative type, we all got some screws loose. I am no exception. You know what
Sure.
I mean?
Oh yeah.
Gives me context to express that kind of stuff. There isn't there's a time and a place for the comedy, right? There's a time and
Right.
a place for the double entendres and the wacky sounding parts and whatever. But Brown Angel is not that
Right.
place. It is not that venue. It's for a purpose. The purpose is to help us in a productive way and just be as loud, as indulgent. I wear that proudly.
Hmm.
And do whatever it takes, to get it out. That could mean stretching out one of our songs to 20 minutes. You know what I mean? That could
Right.
mean
Yeah.
that could mean a 45-minute set of free improvisation, just drone and insanity,
Right. But not so
psychodrama, whatever.
right, but not so much of that on this album. I mean, like this album is only 5 songs
No,
long.
no, 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 no.
Right.
Yeah, five lengthier songs, and really, one of them is a tune that has been
Retooled.
redone or retooled. That's a good one. Yeah.
Okay.
From our very first LP. It's called, on that LP, it was called It's Hard to Be Parted from a Friend. The new version is called It's Hard, Piteous Trench.
Hmm.
And there are additional lyrics that are written by Dan Wyant from the band Zayo,
Okay.
who, again, Greensburg band. I've known those guys for years and years and years. I went to freaking high school with Dan. He was like a grade below me, and his vocals are just, you know, super, super, super sick. I didn't really get on board with like the metalcore thing, past maybe like Converge or the band that I was in, Creation's Crucifixion, or Suicide Nation, and like some of those other like metal, like extreme metal bands sort of playing in the hardcore scene. But like Zayo was always kind of a cut above anyway, right?
Hmm. Okay.
Um, Plus they're hometown guys, so yeah,
Cool, man. Let's keep on moving. Uh,
sure.
Top Jimmy.
Top Jimmy, a song written about Top Jimmy and the Rhythm Pigs.
Right. Yeah.
Not a very good band, unfortunately, in my opinion. Not to my
I
taste.
I didn't even look into it actually.
Yeah,
I was just like I was too busy with other things, but
I know. Yeah, I bought their. I think I found their tape
yeah.
and I bought it. It was on like Triple X Records or something, and it was like unremarkable. But Roth, guaranteed that song came from Roth,
Oh yeah.
like
Right.
Rothland, only because Dave was known to, whereas like the other guys, especially Eddie, they were very sort of musically self-contained, right?
Yeah.
Like Eddie was known for they were, what was his big he would say in interviews when they're like, oh, what's the last record that you bought? And his stock answer was always it was either Brand X with Alan Holdsworth, who he's a big aficionado of,
Uh-huh.
or later, Peter Gabriel. So
Huh.
he said he just doesn't listen to other people's music. You know what I mean? Like this is his whole thing. But Roth, on the other hand, was like a sponge, and he saw Top Jimmy and the Rhythm Pigs. Apparently, and was moved enough by the performance to put together this little boogie woogie thing. Dave's tastes ran to the esoteric,
Yeah.
so that I can get behind. Now, the song itself is it was interesting to me because it starts off with that guitar figure, which is in a very strange tuning. He's using a stereo guitar that was built for him by this guy Ripley. It's called the Ripley guitar,
Oh yeah.
and it
Right.
basically had like stereophonic pickups and whatever. So I guess if you're listening to it in headphones or something, it
You
palms
could
between.
you could like isolate every string, I think, right? Or you could pan each string to a different
Yeah,
channel.
something like that.
Right.
Something like that. Oh yeah, that boom, that little
Yeah,
run
yeah.
there,
Right, right.
which which kind of it's the only thing that I had heard like that up until that point. That seemed like Eddie was kind of uh expanding his palette a little bit.
Yeah,
With
okay.
it's almost like this chicken picking country part,
Yeah,
country
yeah.
western, which he would later do and finish what you started.
Well, see, that's what I wanted to ask you about because
Yeah.
like I think that this may be the first example on this record at least where I could see a possible link into like weird noise or even maybe punk music. Like there's
Oh,
some weirdness happening in this
there is some
song.
weirdness.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
it's in a
And you're
bizarre tuning
right.
for one
Okay.
thing. It's in a totally bizarre tuning. It is. I
Yeah.
could see that.
But so I wanted to ask you, I mean, do you think there's a pop sensibility to noise?
Um, Perhaps. I mean,
I guess depending on the
I'm
project, but
trying to think of. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of some in the late '90s. A hip hop producer,
in the late 90s, you said?
Timbaland.
Oh, okay.
All right. Um, he produced some weird stuff, a little bit Missy Elliott kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
which, using these extraneous sounds and samples and that kind of thing and weird rhythms, um, some of which, may or may not have been sampled from like, Arabic pop records. I think, there was some big to do over, he lifted something and, whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
it was made it a cool song, whatever. All
It's
sorts of strange, yeah, all sorts of strange sounds and noise. It's not like Merzbow, but the noises that were incorporated in some of those productions kind of harked back to like the Bomb Squad and Hank Shockley and
hmm.
their work with Public Enemy, right? I think that there is a place for noise in pop. Um, I mean, yeah, I mean, increasingly it seems to be more and more accepted. I mean, I remember a time whenever it's like thrash metal or whatever it was like freaking kryptonite. It was like radioactive. You know what I mean? Like
Oh
nobody
yeah.
but burnouts listen to that kind of stuff. And then it's like
Right.
by senior year, it's like the jocks were listening to like Metallica, that kind
Right.
of thing.
Yeah.
So, some things take a little bit longer to gain wider uh, for the public's palate to adjust, I guess, for it to become
Yeah.
something that's
Yeah.
big. So anyway,
Well
yeah.
said, I think. Yeah. Let's move on. Drop Dead
Sure.
Legs.
Drop Dead Legs.
So it has been widely disclosed that Eddie drew inspiration for this song from AC/DC's Back in Black.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yes. I was going to bring that up if you didn't. Yeah.
Okay. Well, can you tell me what kind of inspiration you draw from this album?
Oh, so, okay. One thing that I had been inspired to do for many years in various musical projects is you notice that what do all these songs have in common? And in fact, what do most all Van Halen songs have in common? An
Ripping guitar
intro,
solos? Oh,
ripping
intro.
guitar
Okay.
solos. Yes, sometimes. Yes, sometimes. I mean, the solo in Top Jimmy is kind of restrained,
Uh-huh.
in that regard. It's the whoop whoop whoop, whatever he was doing. But like, yeah, but intros.
Okay.
I don't think Eddie's written the song without an intro, and it's always a really interesting sounding intro that maybe uh, either doesn't recur within the song, or maybe comes back up as like maybe in a modified version as part of the bridge. Like, think of what's that one? Women in Love,
Hmm.
the little tapping harmonic part, you know.
Okay.
Or let's see, what else? Well, this tune.
Hmm.
Now that never comes up, I don't think. That exact phrasing never comes up
Again.
without the rest of the song. There are
Right.
variants on it, yes. But
Okay.
so that is always something that I have endeavored to do. That sort of sunk in on me where I was like, any tune that I write, I don't want it just to simply start. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah, yeah. Let's see. So I'm actually gonna skip Hot for Teacher.
Oh,
Well, I mean,
okay. Two things about Hot for Teacher.
okay, tell me.
Intro, intro, heavily inspired by, and this is all over the internet, heavily inspired by Billy Cobham's Spectrum
Oh,
album,
right.
the lead off track on Billy Cobham's Spectrum. Remember, I was telling you these dudes were into like fusion, Alan Holdsworth, and this kind of thing.
Yep.
And uh, the
Cactus?
tune Quadrant 4.
Okay.
If you listen to that, it's Billy Cobham doing very similar kind of like
Right.
right, and Jan Hammer just going off on probably like a keytar or something.
Uh-huh.
And then like Lee Sklar comes in. But they definitely kind of drew some inspiration
Mm-hmm.
from that song.
Right.
And it's interesting because again, this is like the boogie, the end all boogies.
Yeah.
Um, and it, it it is a hilarious song.
Yeah. I love it. I
Like
love it.
I remember when I would hear it as a kid, I'd be like, this is like it's like you're sitting in class and like the bad kids are doing something. The bad kids are, flipping uh Copenhagen on the wall, behind them, or acting up, or
Yeah.
just talking back to the teacher or something. It almost made me feel kind of uncomfortable. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right.
They're like, yeah, I heard you missed us, we're back. So me and John and Dave put a band together in 2012 to play a benefit show, and we did this song and a couple of other ones. And God Almighty, I don't know how I learned the solo, but that was one of my proudest moments. And I shit you not, John sounded exactly like David Lee Roth
Oh,
in the
yeah.
practice. He blew
Oh,
out his voice.
John was singing?
So John was singing. Yeah, it
Oh,
was the
okay.
shit. It was amazing. It's up on YouTube. It's up on
Oh, okay.
YouTube actually. Yeah,
Cool.
our drummer Mike Lachlan, he's now in a band called Auto Replicant. He was in Creation's Crucifixion with me. And he's that dude is like he genuflects at the altar of Alex Van Halen
Hmm.
as well. So he had every nuance, the intro and everything is really cool. Anyway, I know you'd
Okay.
want to skip that. I
No, that's
just
fine.
kind of hijacked it.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Because
that was it.
I don't have anything to say about this song except that, the opening intro and the drums obviously is a very contentious point with people, and there's a lot of speculation. There's a couple of different accounts of like how that was recorded and like what that sound even is.
Oh, you mean the tom sound?
Well, yeah, see, because I was reading Ted Templeton's autobiography, and he confirms, so
I gotta read that, by the way, yeah.
I'm just gonna put this out there because like I said, there's so much speculation, there's so many different accounts.
Mhm.
But he says that the trademark drum intro starts with 5 seconds of Lamborghini exhaust. Then Al's electronic drums come in. He says it took Don Landy a lot of time and work to match up the sound of the Simmons drums to the sound of the idling engine.
That's the shit. I never knew that. I
Oh,
never knew
okay.
that. And it's funny because that's the same Lamborghini, the same Countach Lamborghini that was Eddie's that appears in Panama
Yes,
during
that
the Feeling a Little Hot Tonight.
right. Yep, yep.
He had some rich tastes, man. You know, fast guitars and fast cars. So
Oh yeah,
he's an all right guy.
yeah. According to Ted Templeman in his book, he actually said that Eddie was an amazing driver as well, as far as like driving fast. Like he was like a race car like class driver.
Whoa,
Yeah, said
interesting.
it. Yeah, he used to take him like on rides in his Lamborghini for like hitting like 80 miles per hour on like 25-mile-hour roads. He said it was white
That's
knuckling, but it was intense. But he felt safe because he just thought he was such a great driver.
well, I mean, we all know that Eddie had his troubles, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Um, a lot of folks that you know, people who have lived with alcoholism, with drug addiction, and that kind of thing. Again, I am no exception there. Have this appetite for extremes, like
Hmm. Oh yeah.
he got a hell of a charge racing that car at like 80 miles an hour. You know what I mean? That was kind of honest. It was probably a lot safer than the, pills, powders, and potions that he was indulging in actually,
Yeah.
but I feel that, it's like I've been to the edge. I've been to the edge and I look down, that
Yeah.
kind of a,
Well, it was
it's
a kind of a different type of adrenaline rush he was looking for, like where Dave would go and do these like extreme sport things.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Everybody was just sort of yeah, they're chasing that, I don't chasing that high. Sometimes a not so
Hmm.
natural high.
Oh yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Hey, look, let's keep on moving. I'm actually gonna
sure.
skip. I'll wait.
It's my
I know.
favorite.
Is it
Okay.
really?
When, okay, Zombie and Friends, Steve Moore,
Yep.
and Tony Patera, and then
Yep.
a cast of thousands. They do a cover of I'll Wait, and it's fucking note for note. It's awesome. And Steve sings it,
Yeah, yeah.
and he's like, the key to sounding like David Lee Roth is just to yell.
Really? Okay.
But it's really cool. I think, yeah, one who's that guy from Trans Am plays guitar. I can't remember. Philip Manley
Okay.
plays guitar on it and just nails the solo. Uh, Michael McDonald
Yes.
credited on the on I think on early pressings of the 45. He
Uncredited.
he has a co-writing credit. Yeah,
But he was uncredited when this album originally came out, and he
I
actually,
believe so. Yeah,
yeah.
I believe so. And I think that his involvement amounted to like, coming into the studio for a day, sitting with Ted and Dave and like talking about like melody or harmony or something like
Yeah,
that.
well,
I
it
don't
was it,
like
it
what
was
he
at
did.
somebody's request. I mean, like this is another
Yeah.
point in the album that is under a lot of like scrutiny because
Yeah.
there's so many different accounts. But
Mhm.
I mean, it makes sense that they say that Dave was having trouble coming up with the melody and lyrics to the song. So he asked Ted Templeman, "Hey,
Oh, I see.
how
Yeah.
would you feel about, trying to contact Michael McDonald because they had a working
Wow.
relationship together?"
Yeah. Of
He's just like,
course. Yeah,
because
movies.
Michael
Yeah.
McDonald's huge. He was a huge solo
Yeah.
artist at the time, like
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
crazy, crazy amount of like
Yeah.
gold hits.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they bring him in, and he did in fact work on this song. He did in fact come up with the words and the melody, but was uncredited upon its original release.
I wish they would have let him sing backup. Wouldn't that have been the shit?
I mean, how
Like,
where do
I
you
can
fit
almost
in?
hear it now. Like, oh, wait, your love comes. Is that throaty? Like,
Yeah, maybe that would be weird.
yeah. In 2008, I saw Van Halen live. It was, the Wolfgang, Roth, and then Alex and Eddie lineup, obviously.
Oh,
And
okay.
when they played "I'll Wait," it was a transcendent moment for me because I immediately just kind of was rocketed back through the years,
Hmm.
almost like a wormhole opened, right? An emotional wormhole, right?
Yeah,
Back
yeah,
to, my younger years and like unrequited love and, puppy love and just, the whole, being too scared to ask a girl out, that kind of thing.
yeah, oh, yeah.
Um, but it froze me, you know what I mean? But everything about that song is just absolutely brilliant. I love it. I love that pulse, the dun 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 dun
Hmm.
dun
Okay.
dun dun dun, dun, and then the little arpeggiator that goes in there for the solo.
Yeah.
Anyway, I can go on and on.
Well, Ted Templeman didn't like that song. He actually
Wow.
kept on busting Eddie's balls by saying every time he would mention anytime Eddie would mention the song, he would start like singing along or humming along to the song "Hold Your Head Up" by Argent.
Yeah, I think that they also said that no, it was Jump, I think, that there was a bunch of people, or I think Eddie outright admitted it, that he kind of like cribbed some of the melody or arrangement or chord progression or something from Hall and Oates.
Oh yeah,
I forget what Hall and Oates song. And
yeah, I
like
forget too.
I can't hear it. I don't hear it. I think he was being this overly self-critical. And anyway,
Yeah,
like Daryl Hall was just like, I don't fucking care. It's great. He's like,
right.
he's
It's a
very,
great honor. It's a great honor to
yeah,
say that
yeah,
somebody has taken something and made something so
yeah,
great.
totally, totally. I think they complement one another. Totally different songs.
Yeah,
So wow, that's interesting. Hold Your Head Up by Argent.
yeah.
Huh. Covered by John Connolly of Nuclear Assault on his first solo.
Oh really? Okay. Weird, man. We're
And
getting into
Seth
all
Putnam
weird
was a
facts.
huge fan. Yeah, Seth Putnam himself was a huge fan of Michael McDonald.
Really?
That's all I'm going to say about that.
All right. All right. All right, let's keep on moving. We got two more, okay?
Sure.
Girl Gone Bad.
Okay.
Uh, as most fans know, when Eddie got the idea for this particular song, he hummed and whistled it into a microcassette in the closet of a hotel room while his wife Valerie was sleeping. Did you know that?
I did not know that. I knew that he uh, sort of documented his ideas in some unorthodox ways. Oh yeah, I would hear what did I hear a story about? He would call his answering machine.
Oh yeah.
Like, yeah, he would call his answering machine and then he was like singing a melody into it.
Yeah,
So
that's hard.
it's like,
But
hey man, you use anything at your disposal.
right, right. I mean, that was limited technology at the time, obviously, but a great
Mhm.
method because it records it and then you'll have
Yeah,
it when you get home.
yeah.
But what are you doing these days for demoing? I mean, especially considering like we were touching on this earlier in our conversation, like you're now living in India and
Mhm.
you have this you know working internationally. Let's just say,
Mhm.
I was saying that I thought you slimmed down your gear because obviously to travel and to get across.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no.
Yeah,
My wife wants to strangle me. You know,
you brought over a lot of stuff.
yeah. I brought, but like, okay, what do I do to jot
Yeah,
down ideas? Where the fuck do I have?
yeah.
I got a little green book. I got a little green book, and then in here I have, oh yeah, so I got a pair of these, which are rubber stamps that are tablature,
Oh,
right?
oh, okay.
And I got my little moleskin, right? I got my little moleskin, and then I will prepare the pages. It's blank pages, and I'll just stamp a bunch of like staffs of the tablature on it. And if
Right.
I come up with something, I try to keep the book within reach so I can jot it down.
Oh,
If I'm
okay.
sitting watching, Better Call Saul or something, on the TV, and I got my little guitar out there, and I am just noodling. Which, by the way, that was something I borrowed from Eddie. Eddie would always say, I just watch TV and play, just play.
Yeah.
That was what he did. That was what practice was for him. I also am inspired by his proclivity to tear apart perfectly good guitars, often ruining them
Yeah.
when trying to make them better. Yeah, because I've done that. I did that with one of the microwaves basses, actually.
Oh
I
yeah.
really fucked. So Girl Gone Bad, I feel this again is sort of a hallmark of that, what do you call that, apex of composition that I feel this album really showcases. Because after this record, like 5150 and whatnot, and the Van Hagar years and whatever, I felt that it was compositionally kind of a step backward. He was a lot more adventurous. The band was a lot more fearless on this record.
Yeah.
Whenever they kind of did the swivel toward top 40, uh, which is not by any means bad. I mean, I love Dreams. I covered Soft Corner, covered Feel So Good, which is one of
Right.
my all-time favorite songs.
Okay.
And holy shit, Sammy Hagar gave me a reply
Yeah.
to it
Is that
on
was
his
that
fucking
verified?
Instagram. It was verified, yeah. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was verified. It
Oh,
was
sweet,
verified.
man.
That is my Gen Z. It's my Gen Z like bragging moment there,
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but the interplay between Ed and Alex, of course, is just it's the majority of the song. I mean, it's again, guys who share a brain. The It's a very dynamic tune from
Hmm.
the sort of the ethereal quality of the tapped intro, those major seventh chords that he's tapping out. And he's fretting them down here, and then he's going 12 frets up and tapping them with his finger. There's all of that all over this record. But in this tune specifically, the boundaries between rhythm guitar and lead guitar are very amorphous, which I really, really like.
Hmm. Okay.
Coming out of like when I later got into thrash metal was like it was like socialist, you know what I mean? It's like everything was very regimented, guitars were there wasn't any kind of little ornamentation or filigree or anything like that. Whereas, you listen to Eddie, I mean, freaking was the yeah, like I feel bad for this dude, Brad Brad McPhail. Unfortunately, I think that he was set up to fail, uh, because try to transcribe.
Oh man.
You know what I mean? Try to it's like that cat Andrew White, the DC sax player that Weasel Walter was real into. That guy
Wow.
transcribed all of John Coltrane's solos.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? To
Wow.
get all of those nuances, all of those uh, grace notes, and just the excruciating detail of
Right.
that, right?
Wow.
Because Eddie he never played the same thing twice, too. Very interesting. There was
Hmm.
always some little squeal. There was the dive bomb, whatever. Um, I really dig that this tune is Drop Dead Legs ends with that extended coda, right? They do it again in the next song, which let's talk about next, which is also incorporates a coda.
Okay.
So you got an intro, right,
Hmm.
which is unique, uh, uniquely styled from perhaps the rest of the song. And there are exceptions, like Girl Gone Bad, because he recaps that. The main riff kind of recaps the intro, right?
Hmm.
Um, but you got the meat of the song, and then you got the coda, which is where all the real intricate stuff happens, which is where all the that's where the fireworks are, especially in House of Pain.
Okay.
One more thing about Girl Gone Bad, the Speaking Canaries. Pittsburgh group, Speaking Canaries,
Okay.
fronted by Mr. Um, Damon Che Fitzgerald, drummer of Don Caballero.
Okay.
He was himself a musical polyglot. I consider their album, Songs for the Terrestrially Challenged, to be the unofficial Van Halen canon because it is a perfect midpoint between like Dinosaur Jr., Sonic Youth kind of stuff, and Van Halen. It's amazing. It
Hmm.
is just it's one of those records that it just grips me by the heart. You know,
Yeah.
it's made in
Okay.
Pittsburgh, which is great. But
Right.
he covers the song on that tune or
Oh,
on that record.
okay.
Anyway,
Good. Good to know.
we can
All right. So last song, House of Pain.
House of Pain.
Yeah.
I always thought it was. I always it kind of scared me.
Really?
You know,
Yeah.
it's
I found this.
another one of those tunes that kind of scared me. It just sounded like something dirty. I guess it's like
Yeah.
BDSM,
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe.
Right. Well,
Could be
you're
a
saying lyrically, I mean, but musically as well. It's kind of
even
it's
musically. Yeah, even
darker.
musically. Even,
Yeah.
there's a lot. There's I mean, there's a lot of like snarly, nasty moments on this record, and I can zero in on individual chords even right that evoke just this kind of like ooh, you know,
Right.
like
Sure.
likewise, this riff, that da 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 da, and what a
Hmm.
weird syncopation too. Again, that's there's like so back in high school, I remember this dude would say, there's always that one part in a Van Halen song that's impossible to play. And I was like, when I started learning their shit, you know, like Unchained, there's that part, dun, da, 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 I think there's like a shifting meter in there somewhere. The accents are all weird, right?
Hmm.
And that just got again, that's like the shared brain. That's like the shared mind of the Van Halen brothers right there. You know,
Yeah.
they're speaking their language. They're
Hmm.
speaking their language, their unique language to one another,
Yeah.
through the notes, through the rhythms, you know, through the predictive abilities that only come with, you know, like coming from the same womb and having like the same life experiences. And there's this je ne sais quoi, you know, where they both. And I think Eddie was actually he was initially the drummer. He played drums,
Right. Yeah.
and then Alex had the guitar, and then they somehow or another switched or something like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so this tune, I'm glad that they did not. The so have you ever heard the Gene Simmons demos, the Van Halen Zero,
I
I think it's
have
called?
not. I found out about those, but I didn't put it on.
It sounds like it sounds like comical, you know what I mean? Like he's trying to do like some kind of like Satchmo thing, you know, but
Yeah.
it just sounds silly,
Yeah.
absolutely silly.
Well, so
So
I already have I only have one last question to ask
yeah.
you, and so
Mhm.
about House of Pain. As you were already mentioning, they had done the demos with Gene Simmons. What were
Mhm.
they called? Zero?
It's just called Van Halen Zero.
Van Halen Zero. Okay,
Yeah.
so they were working with Gene Simmons prior to signing with
Mhm.
Warner Brothers. So
Yeah.
this was their very first attempt in the recording studio. But so speaking of like famous supporters, people that that kind of helped create or helped manifest what Van Halen would become. Brown Angel's new album, Promise Maker, has quite the lineup of engineers. I was wondering if
Oh,
you could talk about how that came to be. I mean, because you were
that's a
working with
cast of thousands, man. Yeah.
Sid
Well,
Riggs was the engineer,
yeah,
and
Sid Riggs has quite a
pedig
formidable CV as sort of like a guy working behind the scenes, but with some of the biggest names, right?
right,
So Rob Halford, he was he of Judas Priest, um, what was essentially a solo project is called Rob Halford's Two, and I just remember like the music was kind of like industrial clubby, maybe like first album Nine Inch Nails or like EBM kind of stuff, but with like a harder edge. I remember
Hmm.
Chi Chi LaRue, the gay porn director, like directed the one video. I think it was called
Huh.
"I Am a Pig,"
Oh yeah, I
and
vaguely heard about this. Yeah.
yeah, very, 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 very provocative. A good thing to be airing on MTV. That I dug it. I dug it. Yeah, but the music, it wasn't my cup of tea. However, I believe that Sid, and you'll have to check Discogs to confirm or rebuke the. He was the drummer and programmer on that record,
Okay.
and he also did some work with Rob Zombie, maybe White Zombie as well, like the later White Zombie stuff. And ah, there was okay. This is where it gets kind of interesting with the connections and shit. So the band Burning Witch,
Uh-huh.
uh, it was like a sludge, uh, like apocalyptic, like suicidal, like sludge band that um, Stephen O'Malley and I think Stuart Dahlquist, I think they formed back in like the mid 90s or so. They had
Hmm.
a singer named he went by the name Edgy 59. I don't know what that's supposed to mean, but there's a really entertaining interview with him if you Google him, where he talks about this all this unbelievable stuff. But that band called it a day, and this character, Edgy 59, formed a band called Sinistar,
Hmm.
who was signed. I'm going to wash my mouth out after I say this, but Fred Durst apparently signed them to his label, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Sid Riggs was the drummer for that band. Now, the
Oh.
interesting thing is like, so the common, and he would regale us with stories about like, how weird like Edgy 59 was. You know what I mean? Because he was like, Edgy 59 was like this like noise guy, basically, right?
Yeah.
Um, really sick vocalist, but he was kind of trying to do a new metal thing, right? And it kind of didn't go anywhere. But got some funny stories out there. But
Hmm.
the linking factor was so Edgy was in a band with Stephen O'Malley, and of course Stephen O'Malley is incarnate with James Plotkin, who mastered our record.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So this
So
kind of an
that's
interesting connection there.
yeah. And what about Don Z and Tara? You also had him
Don
credited.
Zientara was so this record was made over a long time. And I mean, like pre-COVID.
Right.
Uh, it's been a long time in the making. And it was just due to various things, me never being in one place for fucking 15 minutes, was a confounding factor. But I remember um, we had done all the basic tracks at Riggs Records in Pittsburgh. And we then went, I had to go back. I was living out of state. Me and my wife were living out of state. And we lived like in the Arlington, Virginia area. Um, and it came time to do the vocals. I'm like, fuck, we're going, again, we at that time we were, going overseas for her career. And I was like, what I don't have the time to fucking record the vocals, what are we gonna do? And I was like, Inner Ear Studios.
Hmm.
I looked up their website and it's like a phone number, right? And it's like I called the number, hey, it's Inner Ear Studios, Don speaking. And I was just like, I was such a fanboy, like I was such a dork. I'm lucky he didn't just hang up on me. It's just like, so this is the Don Zientara. He's like, yeah, this is the Don Zientara. So you call the fucking studio, you talk to the man himself, right? And of
Right.
course, his resume is uh voluminous and
Legendary.
yeah, legendary. I got, I can get you the multi-track files. I just need to record vocals and maybe a little bit of supplemental guitar. He's like, oh, that's great, it's like, like $400 a day or something like that. So um I booked a time, went into the studio, Don's the nicest dude, and he was very patient and super easy to work with. Put me at ease right away. You know what I mean? I tend to get starstruck.
Yeah.
Like I'm just like that. I get neurotic and starstruck about people like. But he put me at ease immediately. Like at one point, like we walked down the street to like Trader Joe's and like, and super personable guy. Like, I think at one point I was just like, wow, so where's the microphone that, Bad Brains used, dumb little
Yeah.
fanboy question. And I don't know. He's like, I gave it away or I sold it or something or got lost in a move. He's like, it was just a tool.
Right.
Really. It was just a tool. And he's like, there's a guy who really stuck to his ideals.
Right.
He's, rather than, I mean, the history of the studio, like all the records, the Fugazi, the, Circus Lupus, the whole Discord, stable of bands and artists and whatnot. Foo Fighters, I guess. I don't know. Dave Grohl did something there. He was in the Scream thing.
Yep.
But all of their shit was on the wall, and CDs and album, framed records and stuff. So yeah, there was that aspect. I took a slew of pictures and whatnot. But he sent me the rough mixes and he wrote in the email accompanying this. Glad to have worked with you, or glad that you came down to work on this. It's good music played right.
Cool.
And I took that as the highest of compliments. I want to impress myself. I want to express myself and impress myself and think like make a record that I would like to listen to. Right. I know a lot of people say, oh, I made a record, I want to listen to it. It's like,
right.
well, I would like to, I want to put my heart into this and I'm concerned maybe about, a handful of peers liking it too, because that's, people that aren't going to lie to me. People
Right.
aren't going to say, no, this is bullshit, this is great, blow sunshine up your ass or whatever. Like I
Right.
rely on that as, this, consensus of a few trusted peers. So as long as I'm impressing myself, impressing my bandmates, impressing, these peers, then I feel that that's a success. I don't care
Yeah.
how much it's. I can
Right.
fucking give it away. I've got boxes and boxes of music of mine that I will gladly bring up to Providence and hand out.
Sure.
But yeah, but it was moments like that where Don just kind of said, such a thoughtful thing to say. He didn't need to say that, but
Right.
it was just it probably meant more to me than he realized it would. Right.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
That's a vote of confidence. That's a vote of confidence that does not go lightly. I'll never forget it.
Right. And that's great, man. I'm so happy to hear it because he's right. I mean, like I told you earlier, I mean, like this is a great record. It really is.
Thank
Like
you.
so you have my vote for great record.
Somebody's gonna get a test pressing.
Sweet. That'd be cool.
I think there's only two. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Um,
But so I mean now so the record's due out at the end of summer, you were saying?
yeah, gonna be on. The plan was white vinyl, which
Okay.
I've never done any other than like a. I did a Creation's Crucifixion record actually that was on colored vinyl before, and it was kind of neat. But it's another feather in my cap. I like that. I like that kind of thing. I know John's real into the John and I went the whole time without mentioning our the core of the sound. He who makes the band is Mike Rensland, our bass player, who is a fucking force of nature. He's like, we used to call him the abandoned oil tanker, because that was his sound was just all enveloping. It was it is not Brown Angel without Miker on the bass. So, but I know that he was, we all discussed what it's going to look like, what it's going to, you know, my wife gets an executive producer credit because she paid for the session in her ear. So, um,
That's cool.
I'm really looking forward to it. It was a lot of work. There's a lot of heart in it, and I hope that comes across.
I think it will. It's a great piece, man. I can't say it enough. So congratulations on
Thank you
creating
so much.
a piece of work that not only you can enjoy, but everyone else can enjoy it too. It's
Excellent.
a great piece of work. I mean, I'll just call it noise rock just for lack of better description. Look, man, you made it.
Jumping a lake. Yeah.
I admire, respect what you said. It's just like trying to make something for yourself to
Yeah.
that you will enjoy listening to as well. Because you should be able
Hmm.
to appreciate your own work,
Hmm.
and so I think that you will. I think that you will look back at this
Awesome.
record and see it as maybe a high mark in Brown Angel's catalog.
Awesome. Awesome. Um, I know we've gone way over. Can I share one thing?
Sure.
I thought that this is the show and tell again. Um, in 2015, the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History put on a program. It was called Voices of Immigrants or something like that. But it was basically about, it was a series of presentations by folks who emigrated from other countries to the United States and worked their way up into success, right? So we're looking
Hmm.
at the real American dream stories, right?
Okay.
Um, the speaker at one of these installments was Eddie Van Halen.
Oh, cool.
You can see the entire program on YouTube. I was in the audience. We're going to end on another one of these pivotal moments, but
You got to meet Eddie?
I got to meet Eddie.
Wow.
I got to meet him,
That's cool,
and
man.
he was in good health. He looked happy. He was incredibly, personable and jovial, and he had the gleam in his eye that I'll never forget.
Hmm.
And I said I get starstruck, but it's like meeting him was like it's like meeting like an uncle. You know what I mean? His music has been with me intimately for all of my life, right?
Yeah. Right.
So I remember I wasn't nervous at all whenever I go up to meet him, and I just remember I shook his hand and I said, "Hey Ed, it's fantastic to meet you." I said, we got this picture, and as I'm walking away, I said, "Hey, thank you for taking care of yourself." And he was just like, "Ah, yeah, yeah, man," because he was a treasure. He was a treasure, and his work lives on. And myself and other obsessives like me will make sure that that remains the case.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
hey, man, that's wonderful. Thanks for sharing.
no problem. I had to, you know, it was a little emotional ending, for the thing. But I was very, very, very lucky to have
Yeah.
occasion to
Yeah, I'd
meet Van
say
Halen.
I'd say so, man. Well, cool, man. Thanks for sharing that. Thank you for taking the time and talking with me, and thank you for making a great record. I hope everyone finds it and enjoys it just as much as I did.
Thank you kindly, my friend, and I look forward to getting up to. Does Providence have like a tagline? Do you call it like the? Is it like the whaling city or something? Like
The Ocean State.
the ocean state. Okay.
Yes, that's
I
it.
hope I will be making it up to the ocean state because Providence always treats us wonderfully, and we love every last person there. So,
That's right,
uh,
man. And we all love you. Come on
thank
down.
you. I miss
You'll be
you.
taken care of.
Really miss you. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Miss you too,
So,
man. Get back
all
home
right.
soon and safe.
Absolutely. All right.